On winter evenings, the wind sweeps in from Dublin Bay and rattles the windows of the houses that line the coast at Clontarf. The year is 1847. Ireland is enduring one of the darkest chapters in its history. The Great Famine has spread misery across the country. Crops have failed. Disease follows hunger wherever it goes. In towns and villages, church bells ring with unsettling regularity as families bury their dead. Yet inside a comfortable red brick house overlooking the sea, a new life begins. On the 8th of November, a son is born to Abraham and Charlotte Stoker. They name him Abraham, though before long everyone will call him Bram. The cries of the newborn mingle with the sound of the wind outside. Candles flicker against the walls. Beyond the windows, the dark waters of Dublin Bay roll endlessly towards the shore. It is an ordinary beginning. At least, it appears to be. For much of his childhood, Bram Stoker's world is remarkably small. While other children race through fields or scramble across rocky beaches, Bram spends much of his time indoors. A mysterious illness leaves him weak and confined to bed. Days stretch into weeks. Weeks become years. From his bedroom window, he watches the changing seasons. Rain lashes against the glass during winter storms. Summer sunlight spills across the floorboards. The cries of seabirds drift inland from the coast. Life continues outside. Bram observes it from a distance. His bedroom becomes the centre of his universe. Yet the room is far from empty. Each evening, his mother takes a seat beside the bed and begins to tell stories. Charlotte Stoker is a gifted storyteller. Her voice rises and falls as she recounts tales from Ireland's past. Some are folk stories handed down through generations. Others come from her own memories. Those are the stories that fascinate Bram most. As a young woman, Charlotte had witnessed a devastating cholera epidemic in the town of Sligo. She had seen panic spread through the streets. She had watched neighbours lock their doors against an invisible enemy. She had seen carts carrying the dead away for burial. Now she shares those memories with her son. The fire crackles softly in the grate. Shadows dance across the walls. Outside, the wind howls around the house. Bram listens. He hears of sickness arriving without warning, of fear spreading from house to house, of ordinary people confronting death. The stories are frightening, but they are also irresistible. Long after Charlotte leaves the room, their images remain. Dark roads, silent streets, figures moving through the night. Without realising it, Bram is building a rich inner world, one shaped by folklore, fear, and imagination. Books soon become another escape. Unable to roam far from home, he travels through stories instead. Heroes, villains, distant countries, and strange adventures fill his days. The boundaries of his small bedroom begin to expand. Then, slowly, something changes. The weakness that has defined his childhood begins to fade. Year by year, Bram grows stronger. The transformation surprises everyone around him. The child who once struggled with poor health develops into a vigorous young man. He discovers a love of physical activity and throws himself into sport with enthusiasm. The sea air that drifts across Clontarf seems to carry new possibilities with it. For the first time, the wider world lies open before him. In 1864, Bram enters Trinity College Dublin. The university buzzes with ambition. Students hurry through stone courtyards carrying books beneath their arms. Voices spill from lecture halls. Ideas are debated in crowded rooms late into the evening. Bram quickly finds his place among them. Tall, intelligent, and increasingly confident, he excels both academically and physically. He studies mathematics and science while earning a reputation as a gifted athlete. Those who meet him here would never guess that he once spent years confined to a bed. Yet it is not only his studies that capture his attention. He reads widely and develops a growing fascination with literature. Stories, ideas, and the power of imagination continue to pull at him. The tales that once carried him beyond the walls of his bedroom now lead him towards something larger. The years at Trinity pass quickly. When Bram leaves the university, he carries with him a love of stories, a sharp mind, and a growing curiosity about the world beyond Dublin. Soon, the shores of Ireland will fall behind him. Across the Irish Sea, in the crowded street and glowing theatres of London, the next stage of his life is waiting. The streets glisten with rain. Gas lamps cast pale circles of light onto the cobblestones. Carriages rattle through the darkness. Theatre-goers hurry along crowded pavements, their voices mixing with the distant clip-clop of horses' hooves. For Bram Stoker, this world holds an irresistible attraction. After graduating from Trinity College, Dublin, he accepts a position as a civil servant at Dublin Castle. The work is respectable and secure. Day after day, reports and official documents pass across his desk. Yet his real passion lies elsewhere. When the working day ends, Bram heads for the theatre. Throughout Victorian Britain and Ireland, theatres are places of excitement and wonder. Long before films or television, audiences gather to laugh, cry and lose themselves in stories brought to life on stage. Bram becomes a regular visitor. Soon, he begins writing theatre reviews for local newspapers. His articles are thoughtful and intelligent, earning him a growing reputation among actors and theatre managers. Then, in 1876, a review changes his life. That evening, Bram takes his seat to watch one of the most famous actors in Britain, Henry Irving. The moment Irving steps onto the stage, he commands attention. His voice echoes through the theatre. His movements are precise. His performances are powerful and often unsettling. Bram is captivated. Afterwards, he writes a glowing review. Unlike many actors, Irving actually reads what critics write about him. Bram's article catches his attention. Before long, an invitation arrives. The two men meet for dinner. What begins as a conversation stretches late into the night. They discuss literature, theatre and storytelling. Bram finds Irving fascinating. Irving recognises intelligence and dedication in the young Irish critic. A friendship develops. Over the following years, the relationship grows stronger. Then, Irving makes an offer. He wants Bram to become manager of London's Lyceum Theatre. It is an opportunity unlike any Bram has ever received. Accepting means leaving Ireland behind. In 1878, he packs his belongings and crosses the Irish Sea. London awaits. The city is vast. Coal smoke drifts above rooftops. The smell of horses fills the streets. Thousands of gas lamps illuminate the night. Everywhere there is noise, movement and ambition. For a writer, it is a treasure trove of inspiration. At the Lyceum Theatre, Bram enters a world hidden from most audiences. Backstage corridors buzz with activity. Actors prepare for performances beneath bright lamps. Costumes hang from racks. Stagehands hurry between sets. Every evening, hundreds of people gather beyond the curtain, eager to be transported somewhere else for a few hours. Bram oversees it all. The work is demanding, but he thrives on it. For more than 20 years, the theatre becomes the centre of his life. Yet he never abandons his own writing. Late at night, after performances have ended and the city begins to quieten, he sits at his desk. Ideas fill notebooks. Stories begin and evolve. Some are inspired by people he meets. Others come from old legends and folklore. Again and again, he finds himself drawn towards darker subjects. Ancient superstitions, ghost stories, the fear of death, the unknown. London feeds these interests. Fog drifts through narrow streets. Shadows gather in alleyways. The city seems to possess secrets hidden just beneath its surface. As the years pass, Bram starts collecting research from across Europe. He reads accounts of strange creatures and old beliefs that refuse to disappear. He fills notebooks with observations, snippets of folklore, and fragments of story ideas. Gradually, one idea begins to stand above the rest. A mysterious figure from Eastern Europe, a creature that survives by feeding on the living, a being both seductive and terrifying. The character is still taking shape. The story remains unfinished, but the foundations are being laid. Soon, a visit to a small seaside town on the Yorkshire coast will provide the final spark, and from that spark, Bram Stoker will create a monster that the world will never forget. The sea is restless today. Waves crash against the cliffs below Whitby Abbey, sending white spray high into the air. The wind howls across the headland and rattles the grass beneath Bram Stoker's feet. Below, fishing boats rise and fall in the harbour. Above, the ruins of the ancient abbey stand dark against the Yorkshire sky. It is a place filled with atmosphere, a place where stories seem to linger in the stones. In the summer of 1890, Bram arrives in Whitby for a holiday. He has spent years working at the Lyceum Theatre and writing in whatever spare moments he can find. Now he walks the narrow streets, explores the harbour, and climbs the winding path to the abbey ruins overlooking the town. The setting captures his imagination immediately. Whitby feels ancient. Sea mist drifts through graveyards. Weathered gravestones lean at odd angles. The wind whistles through broken arches that have stood for centuries. For a writer already fascinated by folklore and the supernatural, it is impossible to resist. Bram begins taking notes, lots of notes. He fills notebooks with observations, ideas, and fragments of stories. He spends hours in libraries searching through books on mythology, history, and old European legends. One particular subject keeps drawing his attention: vampires. Stories of the undead have existed for centuries. Across Eastern Europe, tales are told of creatures that rise from their graves and feed upon the living. Villagers speak of strange deaths, mysterious illnesses, and figures that move through the darkness long after they should be dead. Bram is fascinated. The more he reads, the more ambitious his story becomes. Then, during his research, he discovers a name: Dracula. The word appears in a book about the history of Wallachia, a region of modern-day Romania. Bram learns that it is linked to a 15th century ruler known as Vlad Dracula. The name immediately captures his attention. It sounds powerful, ancient, threatening. His villain finally has an identity. Over the following years, the project grows larger and more complex. What begins as an idea slowly becomes an obsession. Bram researches geography, folklore, and travel routes. He studies maps and histories. He makes endless revisions to characters, locations, and plot lines. Often, he works late into the night. The city outside grows quiet. London's streets empty. Gas lamps flicker beyond the window. Still he writes, page after page, draft after draft. The story begins in a remote castle deep within the Carpathian Mountains. A young solicitor named Jonathan Harker travels there on business. Waiting for him is Count Dracula. At first the Count appears courteous, cultured, even charming. But something is wrong. Harker soon discovers he is a prisoner, and the Count is no ordinary nobleman. Bram's vampire is unlike anything readers have encountered before. He is intelligent, patient, and terrifyingly human. He moves between the modern world and ancient superstition. He represents fears that seem perfectly suited to the closing years of the Victorian age. Fear of disease, fear of outsiders, fear of hidden corruption beneath respectable society. By the time Bram completes the manuscript, years of work have gone into its creation. Finally, in 1897, the novel is published. Its title is simple: Dracula. The first reviews are generally positive, but the book does not become an immediate sensation. Readers enjoy its suspense, atmosphere, and memorable villain, yet few suspect they are witnessing the birth of one of literature's most enduring characters. Bram himself can hardly know it either. For him, it is simply the latest of several novels he has written, Another completed project, another story released into the world. Yet there is something different about this one. The Count refuses to stay buried. Readers remember him. The image of a mysterious aristocrat arriving from a distant land and bringing terror wherever he goes proves impossible to forget. As the years pass, Dracula begins to take on a life of his own. The creature born among the windswept ruins of Whitby and the pages of Bram Stoker's notebooks starts spreading far beyond the imagination of the man who created him. And while Dracula's fame is only beginning, Bram Stoker himself is entering the final chapter of his life. By the beginning of the 20th century, London is changing. Electric lights are beginning to replace gas lamps. Motor cars appear alongside horse-drawn carriages. New inventions promise to reshape the modern world. Bram Stoker watches it all unfold. He is now in his 50s. For more than 2 decades, he has devoted much of his life to the Lyceum Theatre and to Henry Irving, the actor whose friendship transformed his career. Together they have travelled across Britain, Europe and North America. Together they have experienced triumphs, setbacks and years of exhausting work. But time moves relentlessly forward. In 1905, Henry Irving dies. For Bram, the loss is profound. The man who had dominated so much of his professional life is suddenly gone. The theatre world mourns one of its greatest stars, and Bram feels the absence keenly. He throws himself into writing. Over the years, he publishes several more novels and collections of stories. Some are well received. Others fade quickly from public memory. None achieve the impact of Dracula. Yet Bram continues working. The same determination that carried him from a sickly childhood in Clontarf to the literary circles of London remains with him. But his health is beginning to fail. The long hours, constant travel, and pressures of work gradually take their toll. As the years pass, he grows weaker. The energetic young athlete who once strode confidently through the halls of Trinity College is now an aging writer facing the limits of time. Still, Dracula continues to find readers. The novel spreads slowly, carried from one generation to the next. Its reputation grows with each passing year. Readers are drawn into its world of moonlit graveyards, crumbling castles and unseen dangers lurking in the dark. The Count endures. On the 20th of April 1912, Bram Stoker dies in London at the age of 64. Outside, the city carries on as it always has. Carriages move through the streets. Newspapers are sold on street corners. Crowds hurry to work. For most Londoners, it is an ordinary day. Few realise that the creator of one of literature's most enduring monsters has just passed away. At the time of his death, Bram is respected, but he is not a household name. That is about to change. In the years that follow, Dracula refuses to fade. The story moves from page to stage. Audiences gather in darkened theatres to watch the Count come to life before their eyes. Actors wrap themselves in black capes and stare out from beneath slicked back hair. Each new adaptation introduces Dracula to fresh audiences. Then comes cinema. Flickering images appear on screens around the world. Silent films give way to talking pictures. With each new version, the vampire grows more famous. Soon, Dracula is everywhere. In films, in books, in comic strips, on television. The character evolves with every generation, yet the heart of Bram Stoker's creation remains intact. The elegant aristocrat, the ancient predator, the creature that emerges from darkness. Today, more than a century after Bram's death, Dracula remains one of the most recognisable fictional characters ever created. Countless vampires owe something to the figure who first stepped from the pages of Stoker's novel in 1897. The irony is impossible to ignore. For much of his life, Bram Stoker worked behind the scenes. He organised performances, managed theatres, helped other people take centre stage. Yet the character he created eventually overshadows them all. The sickly child who once listened to stories beside the shores of Dublin Bay leaves behind something extraordinary. Not simply a novel, not merely a famous villain, but a modern myth. A story that continues to haunt the imagination more than a century later. And as long as readers open the pages of Dracula, as long as audiences gather to hear tales of vampires and things that stalk the night, Bram Stoker's greatest creation will never truly die. Nor, in a way, will he.